Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, an Introduction Programming Manual. Economic Shock Testing. In recent times, the application of operations research to the study of the public economy has been obvious for anyone who understands the principles of shock testing. In the shock testing of an aircraft airframe, the recoil impulse of firing a gun mounted on the airframe causes shock waves in that structure which tell aviation engineers the conditions under which some parts of the airplane or the whole airplane or its wings will start to vibrate or flutter like a guitar string, a flute reed, or a tuning fork, and disintegrate or fall apart in flight. Economic engineers achieve the same result in studying the behavior of the economy and the consumer public by carefully selecting a staple commodity such as beef, coffee, gasoline, or sugar, and then causing a sudden change or shock in its price or availability, thus kicking everybody's budget and buying habits out of shape. They then observe the shock waves, which result by monitoring the changes in advertising, prices, and sales of that and other commodities. The objective of such studies is to acquire the know-how to set the public economy into a predictable state of motion or change, even a controlled self-destructive state of motion, which will convince the public that certain expert people should take control of the money system and re-establish security rather than liberty and justice for all. When the subject citizens are rendered unable to control their financial affairs, they, of course, become totally enslaved, a source of cheap labor. Not only the prices of commodities, but also the availability of labor can be used as the means of shock testing. Labor strikes deliver excellent test shocks to an economy, especially in the critical service areas of trucking, transportation, communication, public utilities, energy, water, garbage collection, etc. By shock testing, it is found that there is a direct relationship between the availability of money flowing in an economy and the real psychological outlook and response of masses of people dependent upon that availability. For example, there is a measurable quantitative relationship between the price of gasoline and the probability that a person would experience a headache, feel a need to watch a violent movie, smoke a cigarette, or go to a tavern for a mug of beer. It is most interesting that by observing and measuring the economic models by which the public tries to run from their problems and escape from reality, and by applying the mathematical theory of operations research, it is possible to program computers to predict the most probable combination of created events or shocks which will bring about a complete control and subjugation of the public through a subversion of the public economy by shaking the plum tree. Introduction to the Theory of Economic Shock Testing. Let the prices of total sales of commodities be given and symbolized as follows. Commodities: alcoholic beverages, price function A. Total sales XA. Beef, price function B. Total sales XB. Coffee, price function C. Total sales XC. Gasoline, price function G. Total sales XG. Sugar, price function S. Total sales XS. Tobacco, price function T. Total sales XT. Commodities, unknown balance, price function U. Total sales XU. 1. Let us assume a simple economic model in which the total number of important or staple commodities are represented as beef, gasoline, and an aggregate of all other staple commodities, which we will call the hypothetical miscellaneous staple commodity M. For example, M is an aggregate of C, S, T, U, etc. Example of shock testing. Assume that the total sales, P, of petroleum products can be described by the linear function of the quantities B, G, and M, which are functions of the price of those respective commodities. Therefore, P equals XPG times B plus XPM times M. Then, where B, G, and M are functions of the prices of beef, gasoline, and miscellaneous, respectively, and XPB and XPG and XPM are constant coefficients defining the amount by which each of the functions B, G, and M affect the sales, P, of petroleum products. We are assuming that B, G, and M are variables independent of each other. If the availability or price of gasoline is suddenly changed, then G must be replaced with G plus delta G. This causes a change in the petroleum sales from P to P plus delta P. Also, we will assume that B and M remain constant when G changes to G plus delta G. Therefore, P plus delta P equals XPB times B plus XPG times G plus delta G plus XPM times M. Expanding upon this expression, we get P plus delta P equals XPB times B plus XPG times G plus XPG times delta G plus XPM times M. And subtracting the original value of P, we get, for the change in P equals delta times P equals XPG times delta times G. Dividing by delta G, we get XPG equals delta P divided by delta G. This is a rate of change in P due only to an isolated change in G, delta G. In general, XJK is the partial rate of change in the sales effect J due to a change in the casual price function of commodity K. If the interval of time were infinitesimal, this expression would be reduced to the definition of the total differential of a function P. When the price of gasoline is shocked, all of the coefficients with round G, 2G in the denominator are evaluated at the same time. If B, G, and M were independent and sufficient for description of the economy, then 3 shock tests would be necessary to evaluate the system. There are other factors which may be represented the same way. For example, the tendency of a docile subnation to withdraw under economic pressure may be given by the following formula. Where G is the price of gasoline, WP is the dollars spent per unit time, referenced to say 1939, for war production during peacetime, etc. These quantities are presented to a computer in matrix format as follows. And X1 equals G, Y1 equals P minus KP, X2 equals B, Y2 equals F minus KF, X3 equals etc., Y3 equals etc. Finally, inverting this matrix, i.e. solving for xk terms of the yj, we get, say, bkj times yj equals xk. 1. This is the result into which we substitute to get the set of conditions of prices of commodities, bad news on TV, etc., which will deliver a collapse of public morale ripe for takeover. Once the economic price and sales coefficient A times JK and B times AJK and BKJ are determined, they may be translated into the technical supply and demand coefficients GJK, CJK, and 1 divided by LJK. Shock testing of a given commodity is then repeated to get the time rate of change of these technical coefficients.